I have been doing a top-end rebuild on my 1995 Mercedes E320 Cabriolet. It has the M104 engine in it. Here's my Cabriolet over here. I've got the hood down right now so you can't see under there and how I've got everything off, but this is the head that I have removed. And I've been having the hardest time putting the keepers on as I've been reinstalling my springs and valves and things like that. And so I looked on YouTube and saw some different posts, but nothing that did it like this, and I think this is the easiest way to do it. First off, you absolutely have to have one of these kinds of spring compressors. Just buy it. You need it. Okay, so to begin with, here's some with the keepers and valves and springs already in place. Here I'm going to be doing this one, and you can see in here, all right, look over this one. Here I've got the springs down there and the top cap, but I don't have the keepers in place. So all you do is you drop the keepers in, those two little curvy things, and they will stay automatically, no problem. And that little dot you see down there inside, which I seriously doubt, nope, this is not going to focus for me, but you can kind of see that little gleamer down there. That's the very tip of the valve, or the end of the valve stem, I guess, itself. And so whenever you compress the spring using our spring compressor, the valve stem and valve will go down until it rests on the bottom of whatever you have your M104 sitting on. So there's actually some room where it'll go down before it comes to a stop, and then you can continue to compress the spring and it'll work just fine. But the only problem is that it goes down a little bit too far and makes installing these keepers a little more challenging, because these springs are really friggin' tight. I tried doing it several ways with, so here's our compressor itself. I'm obviously doing this all one-handed and one person, so it makes it hard to record and show, but you push down on this and it compresses the spring. And then you've got to figure a way to get the keepers in. And again, if you're doing this all by yourself, it's a little more challenging. So I can do it like this and compress it down, but because of this play where the spring, where the stem and valve go down, it gets really, really tight to hold that lever arm down and get those keepers in. So you want to put the keepers in first, but it still is a problem with the load as far as the valve going down and that spring becoming really, really tight. So what I did is I put a little bit of hose here that I cut off from one of the coolant hoses that goes to the heater core, and so it fits very nicely in there. And so now whenever I'm pulling down on the handle, the valve travels hardly at all, which means that the stem we're seeing stays at that height, which makes the compression of the spring a lot less difficult, because it doesn't have all that tension that increases as the spring increases. So you put the keepers in like this. You take your spring compressor and put it on. All right, I'm going to put this down for a minute so I can get this set up right. So again, you have this set up just like this. You're holding on to your handle here. It's going to compress the spring on the cap, and those keepers are there. And as you're pulling this down, you'll notice that the keepers kind of want to rise up a little bit. So if you just compress this down, boy, this is really fun whenever you're the only one doing this and you're trying to record at the same time. But if you compress this down, I'm having tons of fun showing you guys this one. So with one hand, you can pull the handle to compress it. With the other hand, you put your finger on those keepers so they can't rise up as the spring, as a valve stem pushes on them. And so the keepers slide around the end of the valve stem, and your fingers are pushing them and holding them into place so that as the spring is compressed, it'll slide down around the end of the valve stem and slide into place. So how can I make this recording and show you this? I really don't know if I can. Can I put this somehow here? To show you? Probably not, and I may have to edit this part out. Alright, so I just don't think I can show you too terribly well what I'm doing here. Let's see, there it is. There we go, something like that. Okay, so with one hand, I compress the spring on the handle. With this finger, I hold the top of the keeper so they can't slide up, and they just go down, slide around the end of the stem, and stay in place. Just like that. And it was this one I was doing. Come on, focus. There we go. There they are in place. And then I move on to the next one. Again, this one, you can see the keepers, but the stem is way down there. I haven't compressed this valve yet, or the spring yet. This one, completely in place. That is the trial and error way I found of the best way to get those keepers in place when you're doing this all by yourself. All right, I hope that helps someone, because if I had had that little tip before I started, this would have been done just so quickly, because this is a very easy task of putting these keepers in if you do it like this. All right, good luck.